Well, right now, there is a huge demand in America for books about Black history and anti-racism. We asked our favorite book reviewer to share a short list of great books that deepen our understanding of the Black experience in our country. Carol Behrman is an author, contributor to the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. She's also an English professor at Alverno College, and her colleague Tiffany Brown joins us today. She's the Assistant Director for Student Success. Good morning to you, ladies.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing good. It's great to have you both joining us today. Tiffany, nice to meet you, and thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
All right, let's get started with your top two picks. I want to start with The Warmth of Other Suns, the epic story of America's Great Migration. What was it about this book that really spoke to you in terms of its themes?
So with The Warmth of Other Suns, what spoke to me is the fact that I am actually part of the Great Migration. My mother came to Wisconsin as part of that whole movement. Her brother, her eldest brother, paved the way for her, as well as one of her older sisters, to come here. And the story in this novel really unfolds some of the different themes that happen in my family, and just being courageous enough to leave the South. We're originally from New Albany, Mississippi. I was born there, but I was raised here. And just like the stories around that, how my mother had to still be very cautious of leaving the South. My uncle had to be cautious of leaving the South. And then just even dealing with having to leave your home where you were born and raised, that was, traumatic to my mother. She was away from her family in a new place during a time where it wasn't really safe anywhere, but she had to pave something new for herself.
I think this is an important choice on your part because Wilkerson's book made the Books of the Decades list last year. It also won the Pulitzer Prize. And I think so many people aren't familiar with the migration between the 1920s and the 1970 era where people moved from the South, like you said, to North. So I think that's a great choice. The other one, your second choice, is Overground Railroad, the Green Book and the Roots of Black Travel in America. I think a lot of people also in this case don't know about the Green Book.
Right, exactly. And one thing that really stood out for me, even though the publication of the Green Book, the actual Green Book, was only from, I shouldn't say only, but was from 1936 to 1967. It was in publication. So like during the time that my mom moved to Wisconsin, the Green Book, that wasn't published anymore, but still we carried on that whole theme. Like when we went back to visit in Mississippi, we had to wake up before the sun got up, before the sun came up, so that we would ride into the daylight and we wouldn't be caught in the southern part of the state at nighttime. And I never understood why my mom would do that. But a lot of those themes come from the Green Book. But the other thing about the Green Book, this book right here, the author, she highlights all of that in this book. She talks about group economics. She talks about the 5% of the businesses that are still operating right now, that were around, that Black people could go to during those times and be safe. I often think about how my mother, when we would visit my hometown, she would point out places where she's like, I couldn't even go in there. I'm a theater. I couldn't go in there. Or I had to drink from here at this bubbler, or I couldn't drink here. So it definitely speaks to those themes and those narratives around segregation and desegregation and just the group economic.
Well, and it's so important because I think our kids can't even picture a time like that. So I appreciate the sharing of those experiences. Carol, you were going to say something about that one?
Well, I was I was just going to say about the Green Book. I think it just would blow our kids' minds to think that you had to travel using a book that other Black Americans had used that warned you of the places that you could go to and you couldn't go to. And so it's like it's not a map. It's like it's for your safety, for your survival, and how important that Green Book must have been to Tiffany's family as they were moving north, of all the places that you absolutely had to avoid, even in daylight.
Yeah, for sure. Let's get to your picks, Carol. Citizen, this is not a novel. This is actually poetry, correct?
Yes. Yes. And you know what? I always think sometimes the poets are philosophers about the way we are living in the world. Like Tiffany's picks, Claudine Rankin's Citizen won a ton of awards when it came out a few years ago. And it's the kind of book that's a meditation on being a Black woman in America. And, like Tiffany sharing her experiences, but she also reflects on our culture generally and talks a lot about how to be an anti-racist, we have to start dismantling the things that we see, but we don't realize how racist they are. And she looks at people like Serena Williams and how her career and how amazing her career has been. And then she also looks at very specific details of her own life, like going to the gym and things that people would say that think are offhand comments, but are truly emotionally disturbing and racist comments. But it's uplifting and it's hopeful and it's beautiful and lyrical, and I can't recommend it enough. It will truly deepen your understanding of the Black experience.
Your other pick is a book by Toni Morrison, which is interesting because it's not the one that a lot of people think of or know about through high school. It's not the one that Oprah Winfrey championed.
That's right. And I picked this for very personal reasons, as well as because it's, from Toni Morrison. This was one of the very first novels I taught when I came to Alverno. And it is a coming of age story, but I also picked it because when Tiffany and I talked about what books we would share to deepen the experience, both her books have something to do with the Great Migration. And this is Morrison's book that looks in reverse. It takes a main character called Milkman Dead and takes him back to the South from the North after the migration, looking for his roots and trying to understand who he is and what his family was all about. And it opens with just a stunning scene that I'm not going to tell anyone about because you're going to have to go read it.
I love that. And that's Toni Morrison's Song of Solomon. You say it pairs nicely with The Warmth of Other Suns, which Tiffany recommended. So thank you both so much for joining us. This is such an important conversation and such a great one because people are obviously hungry for it. Bookstores are selling out of this material. So thank you both so much.
Yes, and Tiffany and I have made a list, and we will make sure that it's on the Morning Blend website for everyone to check them out.
You guys are the best. Thank you. I appreciate it. So be sure to visit themorningblend.com to see the list that Carol just mentioned of the books. You can also rewatch the segment for their input with Carol and Tiffany.